So, good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining with us today. Welcome to our second Kickstart training session organized by Arjun Global. So it gives me an immense pleasure to announce that we are running these series of training sessions led by industry speakers, which will help in developing and strengthening various skill sets to advance in our career for the next 6 months. So we are doing this every bi-weekly for all the young professionals and young kickstarters, and of course anyone is free to join these sessions. But before we move on to the session, I would like to give you all a brief introduction about Arjun Global and about what we do as a company. So Arjun Global provides bespoke recruitment and freelance hiring services for the top 3% of highly skilled talent. We deliver an on-demand workforce of consultants, developers, graphic designers, financial market analysts, and other professional services to startups and leading companies. We have extensive experience in providing financial and technology resources for a variety of industries. So we have focused on building a talent pool of highly educated, highly experienced people who have worked with a wide range of leading companies like Google, Amazon, Expedia, Uber, Deliveroo, Coca-Cola, and many more. Arjun Global endeavors to source market-leading talent for companies of all sizes, starting from small startups to Fortune 500 companies. We have achieved quite a lot of success in placing Indian talent from multinational companies to a lot of businesses in the US and the UK. At our core, we are an on-demand resourcing network with highly talented individuals and teams across the globe, with over more than 1,500 freelance consultants across a wide range of specializations. Like you can see, it includes your graphic design, social media and marketing, web designers, content writers, consultants, software developers, and many more in financial and technology space. We are also a registered gateway provider to the Kickstart Scheme, which is run by the UK government and the Department of Work and Pensions. Since the last 8 months, we are working on this, and we have made for around more than 300 applications submitted so far, and placed a lot of successful Kickstarters working with really good companies. So we really want to give a chance to the young and talented people who are on universal credit and are employed to really work for such companies and gain the candidates and edge in areas such as problem solving, communication, cognitive flexibility to gain better self knowledge and emotional intelligence in the workplace. We have taken this initiative to boost the confidence of the young Kickstarters by offering these in depth sessions led by knowledgeable business leaders and industry experts. So our guest speaker for today is Lili Gusto, who's the director of word of mouth communication. And today she is going to share with us, her experience and her top 6 tips on the art of communication and how to thrive in any sector and the benefits it can bring to any employee in the workplace. Lily has over 20 years of experience in communication and runs Word of Mouth Communications, a brand management and boutique PR agency in London. She provides services like public relations, events management, marketing, social media marketing, and sales and global distribution. She has represented some of the most unique niche beauty brands on the market, as well as NGOs, charities, and professionals in health and wellness, including My Hair Care, The Perfect We, Melanie Mills Hollywood, Go the Harmic, and No More Stash, to name a few. Her rapport with the press has gained her clients PR coverage globally in consumer magazines such as Vogue, Harper's, Good Housekeeping, and national newspapers as well, such as The Guardian and Independent. Her background is magazine publishing, having trained as a journalist, and she has in depth knowledge and experience in retail management, education, research and development, and sales. Her agency is multi award winning each year for industry awarded awards within her client sectors. So without any further delay, over to you, Lily, and we all are looking forward to hearing from you.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm sorry, Manisha. I don't know if you were going to play the video or not, but
sure, I will. I can play the video right
if you wanted to play the video as a little bit of an intro.
Can you hear the sound? Okay, sorry about that, guys. I think I forgot to share the sound while sharing.
Thank you, Manisha. So the reason I asked Manisha to play that video at the beginning was because as a PR or a person who works within the realm of press, I get asked this question, one main question, quite a lot. And this main question is, can you get me into Vogue? And it's like the $1 million question that everybody wants to know, right? And so I developed that video because of the way I answered that question as well, because it's more complicated than that. And PR, when you do publicity for people, that's a lot more than just getting somebody into a big magazine like Vogue. And it can be something else. It can be the Guardian, it can be the Independent, a big newspaper, or even getting, clients as I have, like Marita Salin, on, positions in TV, such as ITV or ITN, or BBC. And so, the point of that video was really to illustrate that, when you communicate something, it's kind of like more poignant, like that, what are you actually communicating? So when I'm representing my clients, for example, I'm communicating more than just their brand, that is just another beauty product or another shampoo. I'm communicating them and putting them out there as experts in their field. So they may own their own shampoo brand, but they are, for example, professional hairdressers for 35 years who have done every catwalk and runway show in the world, from Paris to New York to LA. And so, when we do things like that, and when we do press in trade, for example, there are many different kinds of press that we do. One of them is trade, so it's within our industry. It's not for consumers to read, so it's not in your Good Housekeeping, it's not in your Guardian newspaper or on the internet. It is actually only for insiders or business insiders to read about, their competition or their peers, what is the new technology or the innovation, and what is going on now. As a lot of time within what we do, it doesn't really matter what you do, or where you work. It better communication means that you will cultivate better business relationships and grow within your own realm and your role, have more kind of security within your role as well, and be seen by your peers in your working environment as a person that cultivates those relationships, that you see the importance, that you understand also the tasks and the things that you're doing and what is going on. So without waffling or further ado, we're just going to get stuck in to the presentation. So if Manisha wants to go to the first slide. And I will go through, some kind of like maybe daily examples and things that I, do. I do encounter quite a lot of things. So again, it's not just press. I place people in big magazines or newspapers. I also do retail distribution, which means that I actually sell their products on to global retailers in the world, and do deals like that with distributors. Um, I do a lot of things which would be more kind of closely described as project management. Okay. I do branding, so I look at, the packaging of an item, for example, and I design that. I write the copy for that and the content for that. So, some of my examples might be in relation to those things too. So, the first slide, if Manisha wants to turn to the first slide, is active listening. So, a big part of being an excellent communicator is being an excellent listener. And to achieve this is to be an active listener. So it's not enough just to say that I'm listening, okay, but the actively listening. And what that actually means is that, well, active listening, first of all, is a soft skill. And it really involves somebody to pay close attention to what another person is saying, to ask for clarification, asking a lot of questions, rephrasing maybe, what was just said to you. So rather similarly to the girl in the picture there, she's actually very actively listening. She's looking into the eyes of the other person. She's nodding, in that meeting, and maybe, she will stop them and she will ask questions. She will rephrase. So really is to clearly understand what is going on the project, the meeting, the task, what is the objective here, okay? The next slide then goes to examples of active listening techniques. So Manisha, yeah, thanks Manisha. Really active listening techniques is really to be there to build trust and establish rapport with your colleagues, or even it might be somebody that you don't know. It might be somebody who's presenting for the first time. That maybe you're demonstrating concern in a meeting. Maybe you're asking open-ended questions to actually gain more information about the project or what everybody is talking about at that moment. Waiting to disclose your opinion is actually a very interesting one. For years actually, and I've always been like this, is that I'm in a big boardroom, so I've worked for really big brands like La Prairie, L'Oreal, Estee Lauder, and all big management is in the room. And when I say big management, they are heads of the company. So it could be somebody like Leonard Lauder, who actually owns Estee Lauder, and we're in the boardroom, and it's scary really, if you're really young. I was made to be a business manager, really, really young. So I have been in the presence of really big CEOs and really big bosses at a very young age. And, you sit there and you're like, okay, what do I do? Like, do you ask questions? Do you say anything? And really, when something is being said or being discussed or being presented, and you might go, I don't think that was true, like, and you might have something at the back of your mind. It's really important to wait to disclose. And so in a lot of times, and I've been doing this for years in meetings, I actually don't disclose my opinion immediately. And I wait until, some other people disclose or whatever, and then I interject, or I put my hand up, or I wait, and then people turn to me and say, well, what about, the flagship manager at Harvey Nichols, Lily, what do you have to say about this? Because what's your experience and what's your team's experience, like things like that. Because it's really important to take it in to see and observe, like what is happening there again, like, are your colleagues, for example, what is being discussed, are they actually saying the same things as you or not, and you might find it interesting if it's not, that we didn't experience the same type of reaction from, this gift of purchase, like their customers loved it, mine hated it, like for whatever reason. And to disclose your opinion, then to say, should we have made the cream bigger? Should we have taken the cream out completely, out of the gift or whatever it was? And disclosing similar experiences to show understanding is related to that, as I've just said, like maybe, next door to me, Harrods, their managers, disclose and say, I find exactly the same thing as Lily. Our customers didn't like the cream, or they thought that the cream was too kind of low end for them. We wanted to put something more expensive. And so management or upper management would then consider, in another time or the next time we do a gift or something like that, they would say, actually, for Lily at Harvey Nichols, for the manager at Harrods, for the manager at Selfridges, our top 3 doors, and exclusive doors, luxury doors, we are going to do a better cream. We're going to do a more expensive cream in their gifts. For the rest of the country, they can have normal or something else, set at £50 or £30 or whatever. But for them, we're going to do 100 because, their customers wanted more. They'll make more money, by proportion, So it's a business decision as well. Yeah. So the next slide. Active listening, examples of active listening responses are as follows. So I just plucked a couple to help us understand here. So building trust and establishing rapport. So in this example, she's saying, well, tell me how or what I can do to help. I was really impressed to read on your website how you donate 5% of each sale to charity. So this person is actually trying to ask this question to understand, how this actually works, right? So how is it that you got to this point, and that, on your website, you can actually say, how to donate 5% of each sale to your charity, right? Demonstrating concern is another one. I'm eager to help. I know you're going through some tough challenges. I know how hard a corporate restructuring can be. How is staff morale at this point? So this is also kind of like sympathetic, empathetic, because then it means that you actually care, because when you're demonstrating that concern, you're caring. So if you're part of a team and you're asking a question, then, as of this nature, then, you say, I'm part of the team. That's what actually you are communicating, is that I am part of the team and I do care about the team and what is happening and with our project, and I want us to succeed. And that's why I'm asking this question or demonstrating concern. Asking open-ended questions is also important. So this one in particular, I can see that John's criticism was upsetting you. Which aspect of his critique was most disturbing? It's clear that the current situation is intolerable for you. What changes would you like to see? So this is, often comes up, that we don't always agree, right? So, when we don't always agree, open-ended questions are good for that, because it's like, okay, well, you don't agree. So, can we have a little chat about this for a minute, and, see where this part of the project has gone and why you don't agree and what you see would be, right, in order for us to complete the task as a team. So it's part of the actively listening also to your team members, to your superiors, and working together as a team, a part of the communication process. The next slide. Body language is a really big one. I think now, because, since COVID as well, a lot of people working from home, we're all on the, screen together like this today, and there's a lot of, where people, think that, people don't notice. It's not the same as in a room together, and we're all sitting together. So rather like that picture, all the girls are being engaged in that meeting and everything, and the fellow there is checking an email on the iPad or doing something else. And, it's deemed to not only be rude, but also that, you have no interest, or you're not being actually involved in the task at hand or being connected to the people in that meeting. So body language is very, very important. Also, like people crossing their arms, showing basically signs that I'm being uncomfortable or negative. So it's really important to, like, what kind of body language are you displaying? I talk with my hands. I'm like an Italian. So I talk with my hands. I'm very expressive. I like people to, get into it with me and understand. Eye contact is very important. Whenever I've ever been in a meeting, I always look, because I meet a lot of CEOs. I meet a lot of head of companies all the time. And they're the ones who come to me, and essentially they become my clients. So I think it's very important to have eye contact, because it shows sincerity. You're communicating a sincerity to say to them, I do care. I care about your project. I understand what you're talking about. your concerns about financials, behind, making the brand and the product succeed, and how you would like to do it and what length of time you like to do it. So these are all very important things. And the body language bit is one of the most important things, I think, to be highlighted. Also, never to look bored in meetings or yawn or drink or eat. Okay, it's very important, because it's that, again, you're not distracted and you're not doing something else, but that you are actively participating at what is at hand and actively listening and being involved. The next slide. Be clear and concise. Okay, so this is actually one of my pet peeves, because I am a person with not very much time. Press never actually has any time, so I have to be very, very clear and very, very concise when I'm writing emails, when I'm phoning them. Usually when I'm phoning them, if I ever get to speak with a journalist or a writer or an editor, I have 5 minutes. And if I don't tell her what I want in that 5 minutes and complete and seal the whole thing, we are not getting featured, And so, being clear and concise is a thing that about communicating is often that people just like waffle, they don't get to the point. And one of the reasons is that, people do not like to go to meetings. There are too many opinions, too long explanations for things. And you feel like, another meeting and I have all this work to do at my desk and I can't get anything done, And so I think that when people do come together for a meeting, it's a time to be very clear and concise and saying what we want in each department or what we're doing at hand, and how we can just basically get on with things, for the lack of a better term, and how to work kind of more productively together. This is also true in emails. People love to discuss things, long-winded explanations in emails as well. And I think that is also very, very not necessary, because people get bored. They actually also don't have time, Management, actually, I can tell you, never have time. I never have time. So it's like, okay, so can you tell me, in essence, what you want? And also no backwards and forwards. So, a lot of times in emails, when you're not clear and concise, then somebody has to ask you, well, did you mean this? And if you meant this or whatever, then I've got to go to somebody else with this, and it takes a longer process, then frustrations would occur, things like that. So that's why it's very important to be clear and concise in an email. Think carefully when structuring your messages, or convey what you want to say in a few words possible. Less really is more. And I think one of the top tips I have for people on how to do this is, because I studied to become a journalist, okay? And one of the top things, and I have a degree in English literature as well, a couple of degrees. And so one of the things we learn in writing, in communication as well, is to practice a structure of things. So we actually have a very formal structure. All writers, journalists, people who work in press also, they do have a structure that they write an opening paragraph like this, or if they write for, it's different if they write for a magazine or if they write for a newspaper. And so the easiest way is to try to organize what you are actually trying to say with bullet points. I want to say this, and and if you're finding that you've got too many bullet points, can you actually be able to put 3 bullet points in one? And then you kind of condense that down into a few bullet points, and then say to people, well, I'd like to know about this, 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 and this. And this week, this, and this has occurred, Certainly Manisha and I, work together. And so Manisha knows what I'm talking about. I give her, briefs all the time and say, we got this done this week, we're here with this, and then that's all I need to say. I don't need to then, have more time with Manisha other than the week's meeting that we have every week, then we'll go over ideas, brainstorm, and do other things. The next slide. A personal note is always nice. However, not to cross a line with that. So what I mean is, when you communicating, to be too personal in the professional sense is a no-no, because, at work, not everybody, we do have friends, but not everybody is our friend. And we like to keep things friendly, but professional. But then it doesn't hurt, like to, after a long bank holiday weekend or a Monday, to start a response to a colleague or a working partner or collaborative partner that you've been speaking to on a project or whatever, to say, how was your weekend? It's just kind of polite, or how did you get on with, the events that you were going to with your son, like, or your son's, football game or something, because maybe he was telling you that it was a big game. And it just kind of like creates kind of more of a rapport again, a little bit more of that kind of surface, in the communication that you've been observant to others on the team. If somebody was like sick, and then they couldn't do all their workload, and it's like, well, how are you feeling today? You feeling a bit better while you were away? I helped out with this just to let you know the update, like that kind of thing, like to ease them, helping your colleague and easing them back into work, for example. And that's why the personal note is important to note when you're considering your skills in communication, both on and offline, obviously. The next slide. Open-mindedness and respect for others. Now, this is very interesting because I followed a story, actually, a little anecdote. Years and years ago, when I had a big beauty counter in Icebridge, I had a very young, very, very young French guy come and work for me as one of my consultants. He was a full-time consultant, and he was very good at a lot of things. He was very, very good at sales. He was very, very good with the lady customers that came. He was very good at organizing stock. He was, and then, one day, but not always, with his colleagues or his superiors, because, in our kind of, chain of command, so to speak, there was me at the head, and then there was another manager, underneath me, which would be like an assistant manager. But then, she's not really an assistant manager either, because she's been there for the beginning of days, when nothing ever existed, she was there. And then there was another consultant who was full-time. We had part-timers, and so he was not always good about being open-minded to what his colleagues were telling him in terms of tasks, or reminding him of things, and the respect. And there was a story where there was this customer, and there was a complaint or something, and she came and she went to complain, okay, about the cream or whatever. And we had forms for people to fill, no problem, we do this or do that for you, And he came to me with all of this one day, and he told me it was the same woman in this other incident. And there was another incident with another customer. And I stood there and I said, absolutely not. I said, because the second customer you're talking about, I said, actually, we know her for years. We know her personally. We know where she lives. There's that address, is that telephone number on the card, on the file cards, for the customers. It is not the same lady. And he started to escalate this whole conversation basically into an argument, into such a heated argument. He was stamping his hand and his fist on the glass. I mean, to the extent where all the other ladies across the way, that were working with us in the store, was like looking. My assistant manager was like, oh my God, like everybody's looking, And I was very calm. I always treated my staff with respect, okay, even though, I was, managing the whole thing and I was at the head of it, but I always treated everybody, my colleagues, with respect. And I very calmly said to him, no, Gaetan, it is not the same lady. And you will see that if you pull the customer cards out, you will see that the telephone numbers do not match. You will see that the address doesn't match. You will see, and he kept arguing. And I said, okay, so I'm going to walk away. Okay, I'm going to go out and take my break. I want you to calm down and I want you to look at this carefully, and then we can come back and talk about it. And after we did that, I came back and my assistant manager had discussions with me, and she said, "Oh my goodness," she's like, "I can't believe, and then you would tolerate that. Why would you tolerate that?" And I said, "It's not tolerating." I said, "It's actually empowering him and teaching him a new skill, that it is very important to have open-mindedness and respect for others when you are communicating. Whether it's your boss, I was his boss, right? I was his superior, or somebody that is even that, you're managing, right? So for me, the other way around, right? So it's very often that we don't agree in emails. It's very often that, like these fellows here in this picture, they're obviously arguing about something, trying to, one is making a point to the others, about this and why it's right or wrong. And everybody's also very different. We have to keep that in mind. So therefore, remember that when people communicate to you more also, if you are open-minded and willing to listen and consider them, their opinions, and have that honest conversation with your colleagues so that you breed better ground for your projects, conversations, a workflow, happening between all of you. And that to have respect at all times when communicating is very, very important, of utmost importance. Calling people names, swearing, or what Gaetan did, like he wasn't exactly swearing at me, but he was, like doing this type of action, where he was like thumping and, like, displaying childish behavior, basically, is frowned upon, basically, in the workplace. And so we must remember not to demonstrate such types of behavior. And also never to be distracted again on the videos, or the phone calls, the emails, when communicating with people in a space of a meeting, to take note of this form of respect, because that is also part of, communicating respect for others. The next slide. Giving and receiving feedback. So, giving and receiving feedback is very, very important because, I think, team members should know, if, celebrate, things that, we've done together and, it was a well done together. We're all celebrating going out for, I don't know, beers tonight, like, or something like that. It's not uncommon within an office environment, receiving feedback, from management or superiors is important because you want to monitor your own productivity at work and you want to track all your projects and tasks and what you've been asked to do. It's also important for you to be very honest and actually sometimes also do it the other way around and give feedback and say that, this week I was asked to do this or whatever, or I wasn't very comfortable about it, or ask questions again, and say, is there any way I could, go further with this, or, can I gain some more skills? Is there a program, like that I can get into or that the company provides, is something, to be more kind of like, involved again, giving your feedback again. And when you get negative feedback, it's always good to ask more questions and clarity. Negative feedback is not a bad thing. It's always a really good thing because, you understand where you've, not done as well as maybe you should, how you can actually improve. And actually it's part of the learning process, that you're going to learn something and strengthen your weaknesses, as well. So it should be viewed as, actually a very, very good thing. To actively listen to what the other person is saying to you is important with the feedback as well, to be really open about it. And when you give the feedback, also come from a place of honesty, but still with respect. Picking mediums depends on situations, of course, so if it's more kind of like a personal thing, like, and you're afraid that the person is, embarrassed or something, you might want to give the feedback, quietly, speak to them privately in a phone call or a meeting, or online, maybe not put it across in an email or, other things, so you have to kind of like appropriately pick your medium as well. depending on what it is, like maybe the person wants some time off and it's very personal. Their mother is sick, somebody in the family has cancer, like that kind of thing. So we have to be sensitive about those things as well. So that's the presentation today, on the 5 tips, because I didn't want to overwhelm everybody with, like too much, but, to consider, how these 5 things could cultivate better business relationships within, your own working environments. But it's also to be applied with other things, within that environment, like people that we actually collaborate with. It might be, an outside company or freelancers or the people that we actually work with. I have worked with people where I've worked with their companies. They hire me as their, head of press or PR or comms, and I'm the freelancer, and they actually have a whole team of people in America, in LA, and there's a girl that does socials, there's a girl that does marketing, there's somebody else. And we get together every week and we talk about all the ideas, and we communicate everything and how well it went in each section or areas, and trying to, achieve better sales at Sephora, for example, in 16 European countries. Trying to achieve, exactly pinpoint, I want to get into all the Cosmo Harper's Vogues in every single country in the Europe, and how we're going to achieve this, or, try to get more influencers, to boost up the sales, because we, in relation to what we do, we look at that, like, oh, sales are doing very poorly in Italy. Why is that compared to Spain, And then we look at that and saying, oh, well, how much press have they had, Lily? And then, or we go to the social score, how much, influencer, kind of, how many influencers have you done it for them? Or what are the numbers here, And we look at that and we communicate that to facilitate, a better working relationship for the project to succeed, I'm going to let Manisha take over now.
Thank you, Lily. I think really, I mean, all the points were relevant, and I could, really relate to all such points. And these are the things we actually, notice, like the body language is really important. You actually get to know if that person is interested or not, just by looking at his or her body language. I think that's really important. And these are the basic etiquettes which, we all should keep in mind, and it goes for lifelong. I mean, a person, be it like 1 year experience or 20 years of experience, I mean, these are the things, they have to keep in mind every time. So I think, yeah, it was an amazing session. So now we'll open the floor for any questions and, from the audience.
Okay.
Do we have any questions? Guys, come on, ask questions, because it is difficult to get hold of Lily, and she doesn't have much time. So, and she is really experienced, and, she'll really help you guys as well. So you can just ask anything. Do not hesitate, please.
Hello. Hi, Lily.
Hi.
It's Ankita here. I have a question. Like, can you tell us like some barriers in communication, like we face in whatever, like we communicate with the client or customer? What kind of barriers are there which can affect?
Can you clarify a little bit, like, barriers to affect?
Like affect the communication between customer and the person who is taking the call or something like that, which can affect the meetings or anything.
Sometimes I think there's a lot of miscommunication. I think sometimes, okay, so when we speak, and, we're such a global village now, right? Global village is a concept that it's the first concept they teach in communications, right? Because, McLuhan is the father of communications as such, at least that's textbook, and, the whole concept of the global village, we now travel everywhere. It doesn't matter where anybody else grows up. And we come from all sorts of backgrounds, cultures, we speak other languages. In London, for example, we certainly experience that, big cosmopolitan cities. And I think some of the barriers also comes into play in terms of that communication. I know, say, for example, my husband's like that because he's from Vilnius, from Lithuania, but then he's half Polish, he's half Russian. And, and sometimes when he works at work, and he works in, digital. He works in tech, for some really, really big companies. And he's always saying, "Oh, I didn't like, this in the meeting, and the fellow was saying this, or he was doing this, And I said, yes, okay, but calm down. I said, you have to consider where he's coming from, his experience. Maybe it's a culture thing. Maybe that's why he wasn't doing it this way, And you have to consider that, before we, really think of it as a complete barrier. Maybe again, ask the questions, to people. Well, why is it that you think that? So there was this one time in sales, in a really big sales meeting, right? Really big training session, actually, at La Prairie, Switzerland. And my trainer said, our trainer said, Joe Jackson, she said, if everybody could be like Lili, right? Because, she's really, really good at cold calling, and she's really, really good at, and she gets the sales. Why is it that none of you can do this? And then I said, excuse me. I went like that. And I said, I don't really want you to tell everybody that in the room. And I said, and I'll now tell you why. Because it's culturally different. I grew up in North America. And, what you have to understand is North America is a really, really big place. And it's not so easy, actually, for people to access shops or things, because it might be really, really far away, right? Or the big mall could be really, really far away. And people are actually spread out across the country or the city or things, because it's a much, much bigger space than London or even the cities in the UK. And so therefore, people like to do mail order. People like to pick up the phone, call the assistant and say, I would like a top up of my creams, and they'll actually just be sent to the door. And they're also saving on things like petrol, for example, not to drive to the store, or time, because it takes an hour's drive just to go there, and maybe they'll be stuck in traffic. And so, operationally, when you look at that logistically, it's completely different than here, right? And so I can see why, maybe not as many people. And I said, and by the way, I said, when I did get my sales, it was a lady that was living out in Aberdeen, and I'm in Edinburgh, and she couldn't possibly come to me, And so you identify, I said, and I identified all the customers that maybe was more difficult for them to come to me, that would be more willing and open to the concept of ordering on the phone, and that was something to consider, So I think always we have to also consider language barriers and things, because what was covered today, when we say, oh, we don't agree, and to have respect for people, the picture, the slide with the fellows arguing at the meeting, because we have to consider, is that what you meant? Maybe that isn't what you meant, because that person can't find the right English word to describe the situation or what is going on, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's always happen, like sometimes when we do calls in sales and anything, so the first thing comes with accent, like we know proper English, but the other person don't understand our accent what we are speaking. So sometimes they like we communicate any word, so they understand that word differently. So I think accent can also create some problem in communication.
Yes, I agree. Yes, accents,
Yeah.
certainly. Yes, accents, when, yes, my husband was first like learning English, and he came here many, many years ago, and certainly, and he was just pouring beer for somebody, in the pub, and people would say that, and it's like, what are you saying? What are you saying?
Yeah.
And he's asking for the money or something, like, or do you have 20p, like 20 pence, like that kind of thing. And so, yes, accent is always, but I think maybe, to try to find some ways around that too, to say, like, okay, well, maybe before or after a meeting, we can clarify things, and I can put these into bullet points for you, so that they completely, are clear about, what you covered in the meeting, or what was said, or what was discussed, or if you had questions.
I
Okay,
think
thank
that's a
you.
very good practice, Lily. So I totally, second what you've said, that after every meeting, it is very important to, send the minutes of the meeting so that you both are clear. Because if maybe something would have been misunderstood, like accent can be a good example. maybe I have said something and you've understood something else. So if I send out the minutes of the meeting after a meeting, maybe if you don't agree to some of the points, you can, we could clarify it out instead of just assuming that, okay, what I said, she's understood that. So that's actually a very, very good practice to do.
Yeah, Manisha.
Thank you. Thank you for asking the questions.
Thank you.
Anybody else out there you want to, you can ask me anything really, even if it's not completely related to communication. If there's something that's, kind of burning question in your mind, or you want to know about beauty and fashion industry, or something like of that nature, I'm happy to answer it for you if I can.
Lili, it looks like, hi, this is Amol. We've been interacting
Yes.
over emails. So out of the whole conversation, what I could, make out, since I'm sorry I joined a little late. Yeah. So, how we can actually relate to people and understand people very well, being at an organization or at an individual level, is one important aspect that we need to consider. On a secondary, I mean, maintaining respect for individual is also important. It's not like you just pinpointing or maybe trying to, show somebody down in terms of, being snobbish is maybe the right word. Just because you know something more than the other person doesn't make you a better person. So I guess we need to, draw a line and try to, maintain that kind of a relationship with an individual. On a and the most important aspect is basically, developing ourselves in terms of our personality, and most importantly, the communication, because that's where, even if you're from a different world, or maybe different demography, at least if you're, even a guy who's deaf or maybe can't speak, is able to communicate to somebody with his actions. So what is important is that you're going to put your point across in a way that the somebody else should understand it better. So I guess this is what I could make out of the whole conversation. But anything else that I missed out, you may want to highlight those, and we'll be glad to have that as a learning for us.
Yes. Okay. Yes. No. Yes. It's a very good observation, and I think you pinpoint those few key points very, very well there as well. Was there a specific question perhaps that you had?
I was just trying to understand, because since I joined a little late, I thought that if I missed out on anything before, I was
No.
wondering. I
You
mean,
absolutely
yes,
got it. No, you absolutely got. It's
yeah.
spot on. You actually got it, because in essence you have summarized like what was actually being covered today. I don't really think you've missed that much, really.
I can share the slides as well, Amol, in case
Yeah.
I'll actually share the slides with everyone in case anyone, has missed out anything. And also, if guys, if you have any questions later on, you can, just reach out to me, and I'll make sure that questions goes to Lili, and we'll get an answer to that as well. If you don't have questions like
Yes,
currently.
we are happy to. Like if you are incredibly shy, you can email as well. We are very open to that as well. Anybody else out there?
Any questions, guys? So everyone's just perfect in communication, I guess. No questions. Everyone's clear.
I mean, maybe it will come back to you, and then maybe you had a question later again, like we welcome you to email Manisha the questions, and she could certainly forward them on to me, and I'd be happy to answer them for you as well. Like I said, it might not have to do with communications. Again, might have to do with some sort of sector or something else that you want to know about. I'm happy to share, any information that I might have, or experiences, to shed some light on what you're wondering about. I'm very open to that. That's okay too.
Guys, I've written my email address in the chat box in case if you have any questions later on, you can reach out to me, and we can get those answers from Lili as well. So yeah, I guess maybe we have extra 10 minutes of time for all of you. The session is going to end a little early since you guys don't have many questions. So thank you, Lily. It was really a very good session in terms of the effective tips of communication. I'm sure I'm definitely going to you know uh, definitely going to see all of these points and implement it right away. So yeah, I think amazing session, and thank you so much for your time, Lily. Thank you for making us for making time and joining the session and giving us insights on based on your experience and everything. Really appreciate
Yes, no problem. No, not at all. Perhaps we'll have another session in the future about something else. I don't know.
it.
We are
Sure,
looking
Lily.
forward to it, Lily. Thank you.
Yes, and I
Appreciate it.
wish
Thank
all of
you.
you a very, very happy weekend, that's coming up. And tomorrow is
Friday.
Happy Friday.
Friday.
Cheers.
Great.
Okay,
Thank
cheers.
you. Thanks to all of you as well for joining this session. And I hope it was a great learning for all of us today.
Thank you.